idea of praying with the idea that either you show up, God, or I'm lost. Because I don't know what's next. He says in verse 7, or is it verse 6? No, verse 7, let me read it. But let him ask in faith, nothing wavering, for he that wavereth is like a wave of the sea driven with the wind and tossed. For let not that man think that he shall receive anything of the Lord. It's the prayer of faith that gets answered. It's the prayer of faith that God responds to. It's the prayer that says, God, either you show me or I don't know. That's the one that God responds to. And somebody asked me recently, do you think it's possible to live the life that we live and to actually experience God in a very real and tangible way? And I don't know here. I don't know in this country where people are so self-sufficient and where their lives are so planned out and all the T's are crossed. And of course the pandemic threw a wrench in that, didn't it? Huh? We live a life, Lori and I, where every day we just lay ourselves out. I won't even leave the garage. I tremble at backing out of that garage at my house without asking God to show me and to protect us, and please bring Lori and I home safe tonight. And so in that passage right there, and I'm sure James will develop that better, but understand what that's saying. If you want God to respond when you bow your head and speak to Him, there needs to be that unwavering faith that God can be counted on, He can be trusted, and His purposes and His will come to fruition, and nothing else matters. Nothing else matters. Show me, protect me, guide me. Don't leave me alone, God, please. Not today. So for those of you that don't know anything, I got some bullet points here because I want to make sure I touch all the bases. But for those of you that know nothing of this work, God called my wife and I 13 years ago and called us to a very specific work and to a very specific place. The place is Natal, Brazil. It is, if you look at the continent of South America, if you look at the country of Brazil and see that one area that kind of extends out into the ocean, that's Natal, and that's the city where we work. He called us to work with children. Abandoned, abused children is always been the burden of our heart. And we have worked towards that end. At times we wondered if things were going to come to fruition. We found a piece of property within the first year that we were there, but nothing ever developed. We felt that God's purpose for us was to build an orphanage, but we waited 9 years for that to happen. And it has happened. And it has come together very quickly in the last 3 years. And for those of you that have actually seen the project on Instagram, you've seen how huge this is. And if you lived there and knew how difficult it was to make something like that happen, you would understand only God could do this. There's no other explanation. I want to talk about the buildings themselves, quickly explain to you what they're about. And I want to talk about, first of all, this experience we recently had where we came in contact with all the officials of the municipality where this little village is. The municipality is called Siatamadine. It's large, actually. It covers quite a few square miles. There's several small communities that are in that municipality, and Anningus is one of them. The man who is that God chose to build this project, his name is Jotson. He lives in the city of Natal. Here's a funny story about him. I have to tell, I think I may have told this before, but this is just coming to me now. How did we meet Jotson? He's a builder in the city. He's got, right now, presently, he has 12 homes he's building along with the project in Anningus. And we had a connection with the bank, a lady, her name was Clarissa, and Lori and her had developed a relationship. And she knows a lot of the influential people in the city, and so Lori said, this is why we're here, this is what we're doing. Because she would see these transfers of money coming from the U.S. into Brazil, and we wanted to make sure she understood what that was all about. And Lori, so we're trying to find a builder that could help us put this project together, and we never heard from her. And she told us after the reason why, and she said, I was so reluctant to give you a name because I know the level of incompetency, and I know that the men who do this, the people that do this, are not dependable, and I didn't want to be associated with any of them and bring you their names and have that come back on me. And so you really put me in a tough spot, and I didn't know what to do. And she said, I was in the bank one day, and this man walked in, and as soon as I saw him, I knew. Jotson, she said, you're the man. And she explained the situation to him. And he told us afterwards why he was at the bank, and I found this so humorous. Now, here's a busy man. He's a busy man. That phone never stops when he's with us. And he was driving by the bank that day, and he does have an account in the bank, but he wasn't going in there to do banking. He was going in there because when he saw the bank, he remembered, oh, the coffee's free there. And so I'm going to have a little sign made and put it on the common building that's going to say free coffee, because that personality of that man is what brought him to us. And why I said to Lori after, what kind of a person with a day as busy as his would take the time to go into the bank because the coffee's free? And she said, well, my father would have done that. But he said to us when we talked to him the first time, he said, you will realize if you choose to use my services that I will come free. He gets a percentage of the product and the labor. That's how he gets paid. He said, but I carry a screwdriver in my back pocket. He said, and the screwdriver is to tighten the screws of the people that are quoting the projects. And so every day, and that's why he went for the free coffee, because that's his personality. And he has helped us tremendously in all of the purchases, where he has, if he can, and he tries every time to go directly to the manufacturer, and he cuts out all of the retail people in the city. When it came to the roof tiles, when it came to the wood, he went right to at the Amazon where this wood is milled and bought directly from them. He bought directly from the roof tile manufacturers. He's gone directly to the ceramic tile manufacturers and has saved us a tremendous amount of money because he can do this. And he's diligent, and he has this dogged determination to get the best price that he possibly can. And he has proven to us that he has come to us free and has, if anything, has saved us money, and we're very thankful for that. He's the man who's building it. His name is Jotz. He's a Christian. And I'm telling you about him because he told us when we met these officials that make up the decision makers of this municipality, Siatamadine, he told us about this and was an integral part of it, and he feels like he's an integral part of this work now because he sold his home and he was building another house, and his wife and him were looking for an interim place to live, and she wanted to live in this specific building. It was a high-rise building with an apartment that they were going to rent, and he said, I don't want to live in one of those buildings. I want to live in a house, and he fought the process, but the wife won, and they ended up in that building, and who was his neighbor? Who was his neighbor? His neighbor was the judge that we now know and have come in contact with, whose sole responsibility in Seattle, which is a 40-minute ride from the city, in that municipality, he is the judge solely responsible for placing abandoned children, for dealing with abused children, for finding homes for those children that have been abandoned, I think I said. That's his job. And he was Jotson's neighbor. And he, Jotson, brought this man to meet us. And things have materialized so quickly since then. That day that they came, the judge had rounded up the mayor, he had rounded up senators, he had rounded up lawyers. Anyone who was anyone in that municipality was there that day to come and see that village, see that project that was going on in Anningus. And they walked down the center of that road and they looked at those structures that were in place. And they said, how was this happening right under our nose? And we didn't even know about this. They were so overwhelmed. So overwhelmed. And we explained to them our motive, why we're there, and how God has called us to this work, to reach out and to help these children. And how God has miraculously provided. They were looking at these buildings and saying, where? How? God's done this. We're just spectators. We come and we watch this thing materialize. And it's overwhelming to us. But it's just a reinforcement to us that when God sets his mind to do something, it will get done. And he will provide, and it will come together on his timetable perfectly, flawlessly. We've seen it. And these people, these officials were so overwhelmed with this. They actually stood in a circle in the common building at the end of that day, and one of the men prayed and thanked God. I have a picture of it. Thanked God that he had found a place in their little community where children could be cared for and loved. So the building is made up of a common building. That's what we call it, a common building, and it has a kitchen, and it has a dining room, and it has an auditorium, and more importantly, it has 4 offices, clinical offices that we've set up for professional people who want to come and donate their services. Now, one of the things that we have been promised by the mayor, and he has been very diligent since that day, since that meeting, he has been very diligent in writing and communicating with us, and has offered us the services of professors to teach scholastic school, to teach phys ed, swimming, art. These are all people that he is volunteering. They're on the city payrolls, and he has volunteered their services to come in and to work with the children. So this has materialized since that meeting. He's anxious. The judge is so anxious that this get up and running. He presently has 5 infants that he's trying to find a place to place them, abandoned children that he's trying to find a home for. We're a little overwhelmed. I'm 60. My wife soon will be. Becoming parents again is a bit overwhelming. God will handle it. He will. I don't know how. I mean, we need help. We need a lot of help. But he'll provide that help when the time is right. He will burden someone's heart. Somewhere in this great world, someone will reach out to us when the time is right and come to help these 2 old people who are doing something that maybe they should have done 50 years ago or 30 years ago. Anyway, There's the common building, and in that common building will be places for some of these medical people to function. One thing we have a store in the city, and the purpose of that store primarily or originally was just a retail place to sell the furniture that the boys in the village are building in the shop, the cabinet shop. But that has materialized, and one of the things that has come from that, and just recently on Saturday, I think before we left, there was a dentist in there. We've come in contact as a result of that store with a lot of professional people in the city. One being this dentist who was so overwhelmed when she heard why we were there and what's going on, and she was offering her services as soon. And one of the little clinical rooms that are being set up in that common building is a dentist room with a dentist chair and whatever they need to function. And we told her that, and told her that we're more than thrilled that she has offered her services, and that for sure, as soon as that room is up and running, we will be in touch with her, because in that village of Anningus, there's a dental issue. And one of my guys has 2 teeth left. And even his children have lost most of their teeth. And most of those people in that very, very poor village could use the services of a dentist. So, again, that's how God is materializing. So there's the common building. Now, the school we had no intention of building. We thought we could just use the common building for that until we saw the need for a school building. But during COVID, we had 38 men on that building site they've been there for the last 3 years. During COVID, we obviously had to stop working, and these men were paid through that whole time, and the government was willing to cover half of their labor expense. We didn't know it at the time when we agreed and accepted that, but what we were also agreeing to, which we found out later, is that when this ended and men were back to work, we would have to guarantee that they had 9 months of work before we could let them go. And so Lori and I are looking at each other, and there's no way there's 9 months of work left here. What are we going to do? I said, let's build a school. Might as well use them while they're here. Let's build a school. We didn't really have the funds for it, but it just seemed that was the direction we were going in. Now, as a result of having met this judge and having come in contact with the mayor and find out that all of these professors are now available to us, the school has become a very obvious thing to us, that's what God wanted. And it's needful. It's become needful. So that's kind of how this whole thing has materialized. So we have a school, 4 classrooms with bathrooms. We have the common building. We have a pool area. One of the things that we have found out working with teenagers is there's 2 things that they're looking for. And I bet if I asked you, you'd all know what those 2 things are. But one is food, right? And the other is activity. They want to have fun. And so we have this big covered gymnasium where the kids can play. 'Cause you can't play out in the sun. It's too hot there. It's over 90 every single day, and it's tremendous. The humidity is tremendous, and so you need protection. We have the gym, the covered gymnasium, which is a huge building, and we have the pool, which is also large, and that provides the activities. And then we have the common building with the kitchen to feed them. And those are the 2 things that they're looking for. And so that's kind of the story for those buildings. The house, where Lori and I will move to as soon as we get back, we're thinking it will be ready for us when we get back, move from where we are to the house that's built on the project. We thought that would accommodate 5, 10, maybe 20 children. But we've been told, after they went up and looked at the bedrooms, easy 60 kids. We'll see. If we need to, the space is there, the square footage of land is there to build 6 more homes, in addition to the one that we're going to move into. So the house is there. That's the structure. Now let me just go through these points. These are the questions that we get asked and we don't have answers for, and I'm not even suggesting now that I have the answer for them, because this is the future that I'm talking about, but we were sitting at the airport. We had a 5-hour layover in Newark, and we were sitting there with a man and had a tremendous conversation with him for pretty much that whole period of time, but he was kind of pummeling us with these questions, which are the common sense questions that people would, how are you going to do this? How are you going to do this? How are you going to handle this situation? And I don't even have the answers for them, but I want to at least address them here today, because I think these are probably the questions that are in your mind. There'll be 2 parts to the orphanage. One is called a creche, where 160 kids, that's what the authorities have decided, can come on a daily basis. These are children that have a place to sleep at night, but are abandoned or just thrown out during the day. Now, the village of Anningus, where this project is, a very, very poor village, extremely poor village. This is something that we see daily, where the children are just kind of kicked out of the house in the morning, and they come back to sleep at night, and they're on their own. The officials told us that right now this could accommodate 160 children who would spend the day with us. They would be bussed in, or however they decide to bring them to us. They would spend the day. They would arrive at 7 in the morning, leave at 5 at night. So that means 3 meals with 2 snacks in between, providing them everything that they need. And of course, the opportunity with them there to just talk to them or show them or express to them the love of God by showing them the affection that God has for them and that they're not receiving in their homes right now. And the second part is an actual orphanage where children live there and grow up there, right? That's the second part. And as of right now, they're telling us that it can accommodate 60 children. So we'll see how that materializes. And like I told you, there's already 5 that he's looking to place. They have promised us the availability of all of these employed people who would come, not permanently, they wouldn't permanently be here, but they would come on a voluntary basis and offer their services. And we're looking forward to that. But we'll also need and would ask that you pray that God burdens the heart of some young person, whoever it may be, that would love to come and permanently live there and help us with what needs to be done there, whether it's teaching, whatever the case. There's so much that can be done, and so we're looking to God for that, a full-time teacher. I put in caps, we need help. Let's see what else I have here. The other thing we asked the mayor is to help us, because we want this to be totally transparent, to help us with all of the requirements, because there is a long list of requirements in order for this orphanage to function legitimately within the ground rules of that municipality. Come and help us with this. Show us what we need to do. For example, cameras in all the different rooms, and whatever the health requirements are, help us with that. Just lay it all out for us and make that clear, so that we are running completely in accordance with the requirements of that municipality, and he's promised to do that for us. So we're looking forward to that coming into place when we get home. The other thing we asked him to do, and I didn't think he could do anything about this, but Lori asked him anyway, and he's promised to remove any of the obstacles as far as shipping donations from here to the port there in Natal. Now, one of the big problems is corruption, payoffs. That's huge. You can't get anything done if you're not willing to pay off the officials, and we won't do it, which is a big reason why we've been waiting 9 years for this to come into fruition. He has promised to remove all of those obstacles and make it possible for us to receive donations in a container that would come from the U.S., get rid of the red tape, and allow that to be distributed. So he says he can do it. We'll see what materializes from that, but that would be huge. That would be awesome if he could make that happen. The other thing that we talked to him about is the possibility of future adoption for some of these children. I know that this is something that's a burden on many people's heart as they hear about what's going on. Wow, it's 10 to 12. Wow. We're going to talk to the officials who can handle that so that these children will be available if anyone in the U.S. is looking to adopt them. We'll keep you posted on that. Future adoptions. I think those look like all of my bullet points here. Yeah, I think that covers it, right? These are the questions we get asked all the time. I don't know how any of this is going to come to fruition. I just know it will. In some way, God will handle this. We covet your prayers. Obviously, we covet your prayers. I'm still operating the shop, and I have to go home and make a decision about that, because out of the 5 men that we had taken from the village, and we've taught them the trade of building furniture and cabinetry, and we use the store in the city to sell that product. But the store has taken a different direction, selling a different kind of a product. The shop, there doesn't seem to be the call for furniture, and I have to go home and make that decision whether we keep the shop going or close it, because there's now a lot of work for me to do on the site, and I don't know if I could split myself up and be effective in either one of them. So pray about that. Pray about our moving there, because one of the miracles, and I will share this with you, one of the tremendous God miracles was bringing electricity. All of that has been built without electricity. We've used the generator and spent an absolute fortune on gasoline, and have prayed because we didn't know how God was going to handle this. This was huge. It's about 1.5 miles, 2 miles of wires and poles and transformers to get electricity. This project is in the middle of no man's land. If any of you look on the map and see where that is, it's in the middle of the woods, basically, next to the village of Anningus, which is also in the woods. And the main road where there's power is close to 2 miles away from where this project is. And the electric company told us that if they bring us electricity, we would be responsible for a good portion of the expense to get electricity. It was going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars. And while I'm on that, I'm going to share something else with you. So this whole thing got built without electricity. And then the day came when Jodson played us the message, because we had been after the electric company and after them, and they finally responded. They had 2 projects going. They had one in Muriu, which was a fraction of the size of what was going on in Anningus, and they had the project in Anningus. And on the message they said, the people in Muriu are going to have to pay for theirs, but the one in Anningus is going to get it for free. And within weeks, the power lines were there, the transformers were there, and if that's all hooked up to the buildings when we get home, then we can move. And that's the plan. I'll just share this one story with you before we go. Just before we left, one of the things that we've attempted to do is be self-sufficient on the project site, and so the latest thing was solar panels, because the sun is so strong there that we can generate all our own electricity, and so we've been working towards that. And it's a huge, the solar panels, it's over $200,000 to do the panels that will adequately take care of all of these buildings. And I'll just give you the numbers. We had 40, which was enough to sign the contract and make a down payment. That's what we had to work with. But we did believe that this is what God wanted. That was very clear to us, that this is what God wanted. And we left Anningus having signed the contract and given him our measly 40,000 of the 200 he wanted. And by the time we landed here, which was on a Tuesday, I think by Thursday, donations had come in and it was paid in full. I will tell you that when you experience these things over and over, these little, to God it's little. That this is small potatoes to God, right? Little confirmations that I'm with you guys. This is what I want. This is my will. I'm doing this. I'm making this happen. You have that track record to fall back on. And then people start to pummel you with all of these obstacles, these questions that seem like obstacles moving forward. And you can say to them with absolute confidence, it's not my problem. It's not my problem. And God will handle it. And when I come to see you next time, I'll tell you how he did it. And you'll agree with me. Only God. That's the only explanation. Living that life is hard. He shows up at the 11th hour every single time. Every single time. Someone said to me this week, why does he have to do that, Mark? Why does he have to add worrying to everything else you're going through? Oh, but he wants that life of dependence on him. Just trust me, Mark. Trust me, Lori, I'll take care of it. And he does it. And we bow and we thank him, and then we give him whatever else needs to be done. Tremendous to live that kind of a life, and it's hard, and we struggle with it because we're human beings, and we constantly want to take the reins back. We think we know best, but then we fall back on that track record of 13 years, proving himself over and over again, and we give it to him. So I hope that brings you up to date on what's going on, and I'll end it at that. You want me to close in prayer, or?
Yes, please. Just thanks for the food.
Oh, there's food, okay. I can do that. We'll take a moment and speak to God. Father, thank you again for this tremendous opportunity to testify or to speak well of all that God has done in the village of Aningus, and his heart, the evidence of his heart for these children, his compassion for the children. And what a privilege to have been chosen to be the ones who would be allowed to be party to this, and to watch God move, and to tell others of the miraculous dealings of God in this tremendous work. And we're so thankful for being able to witness this, and for the tremendous lessons that God has taught us over the 13 years, and our willingness to trust him and to realize that every obstacle can easily be removed, and know that God, the God that we serve, cannot fail and will not fail and is trustworthy. Thank you for this. Thank you for the opportunity to speak well of our Savior today, for the privilege to worship the one who loved us and died for us. And now, as we end this meeting, we would pray for the refreshments downstairs. Acknowledge this also as a small blessing from God, and ask to accept thanks for this, and for our salvation, and for God's beloved Son. We ask to accept thanks in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.